Powerful blasts rock Mykolaiv and destroy 5 Ukrainian army posts in the Donbas region, as Moscow denies aiming at civilians. Dozens of flights have been cancelled as ground workers strike at Charles de Gaulle in Paris and Madrid's airport.
Yet another heat wave. The warm weather across Europe causes flooding in Poland and water restrictions in Italy.
After 2 years of cancellations because of the coronavirus pandemic, parades return to celebrate 50 years of LGBTQ pride in London.
Germany agrees to return stolen artifacts back to Nigeria, known as the Benin bronzes.
Powerful blasts rocked the city of Mykolaiv in Ukraine and destroyed 5 Ukrainian army command posts in the Donbas region. High-precision weapons also struck 3 storage sites in the Zaporizhia region, according to Moscow's defense ministry. The ministry also said that the Russian Air Force had struck a Ukrainian weapons and equipment base at a tractor factory in Kharkiv. The cause of the blasts were not immediately clear, although Russia later said it had hit army command posts in the area. Kyiv says Moscow has intensified missile attacks on cities far from the main battlefields in the country's east, and that it hit civilian sites on purpose. Ukrainian troops on the eastern front lines, meanwhile, describe intense shelling that has flattened residential areas. Moscow insists it has targeted military sites only and denies aiming at civilians. Russia is seeking to drive Ukrainian forces out of Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. In the eastern Donbas region, where Moscow-backed separatists have been fighting Kyiv since Russia's first intervention in 2014.
Here in the Donbas region, Ukrainian soldiers like Vladimir and Artem perhaps didn't envision themselves wearing army gear battling for their country 1 year ago. But since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, things are different, with many citizens feeling compelled to sign up and protect their nation from bombardment.
The morale of our boys is high. They are riled up and will beat the enemy for sure, with complete annihilation until we get to the borders of 2014, including Crimea and all. It was very difficult for the boys. Let me emphasize again, those were not human conditions they had to fight in. It's difficult to explain this to you here, what they feel like now, or what it was like there. They were fighting to the end there. The task was to destroy the enemy, no matter what.
Based just next to Severodonetsk, Ukrainian troops in Sloviansk are experiencing some heavy aggression from Russian forces. One of Ukraine's biggest towns, Severodonetsk had endured a colossal amount of shelling to the point of surrender.
Lithuania has vowed to continue its one-year-old controversial migration policy despite the EU's top court ruling it illegal. The European Court of Justice ruled that Lithuania broke the EU's Charter of Fundamental Rights by restricting migrant entry. It follows a damning report by Amnesty International accusing the government of breaking international law and mistreating migrants. As long as the regime in Belarus will use such pressure tools, instrumentalize migration and attack Lithuania, we will defend ourselves, she says. Lithuania will defend itself and for sure continue the policy of not letting illegal migrants in. It helps us defend ourselves from the hybrid attack, and this is in our national security interest. In July last year, there were several thousand people trying to cross the border from Belarus into Lithuania. Some of them were detained, and border guards were instructed to push back those trying to enter.
Europe is experiencing yet another heat wave. In Poland, the sun was followed by torrential rain. In Gdynia, festival goers were evacuated for several hours yesterday. The rain also damaged many houses in the area. Meanwhile, in Italy, the country is enduring its worst drought in 70 years, drying out the rice paddies of the River Po Valley. Rome Zoo is distributing frozen fruit, meat and fish to help animals cope with the very high temperatures in the Italian capital. Shade, ponds of cold water and even showers for the elephants. Everything is being done to help them cope with the heat wave that has come earlier in the year than expected. Following the persistent hot weather, the mayor of Verona, Damiano Tomassi, signed the ordinance that limits the use of drinking water for domestic purposes, for cleaning and hygiene reasons only, until the end of August.
Dozens of flights have been cancelled at Charles de Gaulle Airport on Saturday amid an ongoing dispute over wages and working conditions. The French Civil Aviation Authority has requested preventive flight cancellations and closed part of the runway as firefighters went on strike. A government spokesperson said they will continue to discuss with the unions to find a way out of the crisis. In Madrid, 15 flights were cancelled and 175 delayed by a cabin crew strike at EasyJet and Ryanair. We have been told there is a delay at the security checkpoints. In principle, everything is fine. We are able to check in without any problems to London. They have sent me an email to come here 3 hours in advance. And holidaymakers in the UK are also facing further disruption after weeks of travel chaos, as airlines prepare to announce a new wave of cancellations next week, just ahead of the school summer break. London is celebrating its 50 years of gay pride. A vibrant crowd of hundreds of thousands turned out to either take part or watch the festivities, forming a spectacle of rainbow flags and glitter. After 2 years of cancellations because of the coronavirus pandemic, the parade came back half a century after London's first march to celebrate Pride in 1972. Saturday's procession took a similar route to the original, starting outside Hyde Park and touring down the streets towards Westminster. More than 600 LGBTQ groups were expected to take part in the march. Over in France, thousands of people took part in the LGBTQ+ Pride March in the streets of Toulouse and Marseille on Saturday. In Toulouse, thousands danced and cheered the fight against shame, ignorance and violence promoted by the LGBTQ+ community.
The Texas Supreme Court has blocked a lower court order that had allowed clinics in the state to continue performing abortions even after the US Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision last week. It was not immediately clear whether the clinics in Texas that resumed performing abortions just days ago would halt services again. A hearing is scheduled for later this month. The Uvalde School District Police Chief has stepped down from his position in the City Council, following heavy criticism to his response to the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School. 3 minutes after the shooter entered the school, sufficient armed law enforcement were on the scene to stop the gunman. Yet police officers, armed with rifles, stood idle for more than an hour.
Five people have been killed and 44 injured in an earthquake in southern Iran. The epicenter of the magnitude 6.3 quake was the village of Sayr-Khosh in Hormozgan province, about 1,000 kilometers south of Tehran. There have been several moderate earthquakes in the same area recently. In November 2017, 620 people died in a powerful earthquake in western Iran.
Germany has agreed to return looted African colonial artifacts, including 1,000 Benin bronzes that will be repatriated to Nigeria. Stolen by British colonial expeditions, vast quantities of treasures in 1897 were taken from the Kingdom of Benin, what is now southwest Nigeria.
We all agree that this is a necessary and important step, also for a new culture and of cooperation with our partner countries in the global south, that we just return illegally acquired cultural assets of the colonial context.
The artifacts ended up being spread far and wide around the world. Hundreds were sold to collections such as the Ethnological Museum in Berlin, which has one of the world's largest groups of historical objects from the Kingdom of Benin, estimated to include about 530 objects. A commemorative head of a king and a relief slab depicting a king with 4 attendants were handed over as German and Nigerian officials signed their joint declaration at the German Foreign Ministry in Berlin.